And our next speaker is Kelley. Diana? Cybersecurity Field CTO, Microsoft. Diana is the CTO for Microsoft and the cybersecurity field, and cybersecurity architect, executive advisor, and author. You are there. Good. Come over, please. At Microsoft, she leveraged her 25+ years of cyber risk and security experience to provide advice and guidance to CSOs, CIOs, and CISOs at some of the world's largest companies. Please welcome her to the stage for a talk titled Deeds, Not Words, 7 Highly Effective Actions of Trusted Cloud Partners. Diana, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello. It's great to be here. It's great to be back here at Cybertech. This is one of my absolute favorite conferences, so I'm really glad to be here and glad to see everybody. And for anybody who's new to Cybertech, welcome. I think you're going to have a great time. All right, deeds, not words. What does that mean? It means actions. If you're a writer or if you've ever talked to people about writing, there's this common phrase, it's show, don't tell, right? Because when you tell people, it doesn't have the same weight as when you actually do something. So trust, and what your cloud providers do around trust, what you really want is not just assurances, but you want proof. You want to look at their actions. So we're going to walk through 7 different actions of a trusted cloud provider. But just a little joke to get us started. Trust me, right? A lot of cloud providers just say trust. It's like a doctor. I'm a doctor, trust me. I'm a cloud provider, trust me. But it does have to go to more than that. It has to be what they're doing for their actions. And this one is like, trust me, it's so secure, you're not even going to be able to access your data. Well, that's not very good, right? Because the point is you want to get to your data, you need to have it available. You just don't want the bad guys or the people that aren't supposed to see it to see it. So the foundations of trust, in order to be able to get trust and that what action you need to do is you want to get, for the first principle, you need to have security. Because if you don't have security, you're not going to be able to trust the systems. But privacy matters too. When you go to the cloud, it's your data. It's your business's reputation. It's your company's customer interactions that are on the line. And privacy really matters quite a bit, too, as one of those founding principles. Transparency, so people know what you're doing with the data, what you've committed to. And compliance. Compliance truly matters because when you're working internationally, as you guys know, compliance, it tends to be sort of the boring part of cyber, but it's absolutely critical. If you're not in compliance, you can have a lot of fees or fines or also lose trust from your own customers. So those are the principles. But let's take a look at what they look like in action. What are the 7 habits of a highly trusted cloud provider? The first one is going to be around responsible use of your data. Does your provider understand how to use that data in a way that makes sense for you and in a way that you approve of? And one big example is, what's your cloud provider doing? Are they monetizing your data? Do you feel, if you want them to monetize the data, you can still trust them with it, but as long as they're open and tell you what they're doing with the data. But do you want it to be monetized? And how is it monetized? What third parties are they sharing it with? How is that data going to be used by that third party? What happens if your data goes missing from the third party that your cloud provider shared it with? It's a lot of different questions to go deeper into. But the most important thing is this responsible use, that you understand what they're doing with the data, and that they've looked at privacy and responsible use throughout the entire development lifecycle, including their supply chain with their partners. The second action, the transparency, back to that principle. Understanding where your data is being used, where it's going, how it's being used, what kinds of compliance your provider has. Are they upfront and honest about where that data goes and how it's used? And do you have access to that transparently? Now, a lot of times there's sort of the high level of, we'll take care of your data, but what location is it at? Who are they sharing it with? All these different things about the visibility. What are they doing in terms of even things like hiring practices, about practices of where they're putting the data centers? So transparency, you as the customer being able to see what's happening with the data. Can that cloud provider grow with you? Your company's growing, hopefully. Your customer base is growing. Is your cloud provider going to be able to move forward with you? Are they going to be secure at scale? Because one of the great reasons that we go to the cloud is that we want to be able to have, to get that security at scale, get that, the intelligence of the provider, get their security insights, be able to leverage that out, to be able to burst with security just like we burst with cloud consumption. So do you trust that provider? Have they put in controls to have this ready at scale? That means hiring the people in the data centers, building out the data centers, managing the data centers. Are they ready to continue with security at scale for your company? A little note about security at scale in data centers. This is actually the Microsoft. I did want to level set one thing about our company specifically. I don't want to do a total pitch, but we did just announce last week that one of our security at scale moves is that we are continuing to build data centers around the world, and we're very proud and happy and pleased to announce that we are going to be building a data center here in Israel. And we should be ready to go in 2021. So, yeah. Yes. Okay, the fourth action. So that's one of our actions about security at scale, committing to data centers here in Israel. Fourth action, privacy aware. Does your provider understand the different global regulations, and how do they think about the data? I can tell you how Microsoft thinks about the data. The data that goes into Azure, that comes from our customers, that is not our data. That's your data. And we understand that's your data. So the privacy controls around it, it's important to make sure that those apply within the cloud. And will your provider actually go to court and fight for your rights? If there's legal action trying to gain control of your data, trying to look at it, if you've got law enforcement that wants to look at the data, does it matter what that law enforcement, where they're coming from, which part of the world, right? Because if you're a citizen of a country and you put your data into a data center in that country, you also want the laws around access to be consistent with that country that you're in. You don't want to necessarily have it be accessed by a law under a different place. So, does your provider commit to that? And also, here's another really important action: is your provider putting a backdoor in for governments? Now, this is it's a complicated subject. And I know we've only got a short amount of time, so we can't go into depth on this, but please do think about backdoors and what that means. Because do you want a government to have access to that data? And which government do you trust? Right, so you may trust one government, but not another government. So having backdoors is something that really can open up some privacy issues. It's not everybody feels comfortable with it. And not having backdoors is something that we've taken action and committed to not putting in backdoors. So ask your company not just what they do for privacy in terms of regulation and compliance, but also privacy awareness, and will they fight to protect your data? But compliance, it really does matter quite a bit. There are a lot of, it's almost like an eye chart, right? And there's just what's happening every day. There's going to be there are more regulations all the time. So what kind of taking the time to go and get the compliance work done, getting the assessment, getting the certification, has your provider taken that action for you to show that they're compliant for the different regulations around the world? That's not to be confused with the fact that because the cloud provider is compliant, that you're necessarily going to always be compliant within your instance, which sounds a little bit confusing, but let me get to the next one. It explains it a little bit better, which is about this shared partnership, this shared responsibility model in the cloud. Now, a lot of times customers say, well, wait, I want you to just do everything for me. OK, but remember, again, it's your data. So you decide what you do with it. Just like it's your car, you decide if you're going to leave it unlocked. We can strongly recommend, people can strongly recommend, don't leave your car unlocked. But it's your car. So with your data, the cloud provider should prove to you, so that you can have trust in them, that they have compliance for their cloud. But then you also have to think about compliance related to what you load up into that cloud. If you stand up a server in the cloud and you put critical data in it, are you protecting it with passwords? Are you choosing to encrypt the data that's stored in that database, for example? These are questions that you have to answer as a customer of that cloud provider, so that you can also be compliant and take part in this shared responsibility model, where you make some decisions about your data, because again, it's your data, and the cloud provider, depending on which level, whether it's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, is providing security underneath. And then the last action, so in this one, that's sort of a dual action, both the cloud provider and the customer, and we're in partnership together. Then the last action, is your cloud provider giving you a future-forward approach? So that, life moves pretty fast, like Ferris Bueller likes to say. Is your cloud provider thinking about the future, and are they building in protections for you for the future? So are they continuing to invest? Are they continuing to put new technologies into place? Are they staying aware of the latest threats and trends? What kind of signal are they taking into account to be able to monitor the activity, so that they can see if the TTPs are changing? And also, do they take any actions, just like, will they go to court to protect your data? Will they also, take action to protect you from malfeasance by trying to stop bad actors in the cloud as much as possible? So an example of what Microsoft does in this space is that we actually actively do disruptions of large botnets. When possible, we've taken down or disrupted some of the largest botnets in the world. And it's because we're looking at the future. In addition to today, we're looking at the future and trying to keep the cloud as safe as possible for tomorrow. And also ask your cloud provider, what's in the roadmap? What are they committing to? And are they going to continue to keep things secure for you, so that you can continue to have trust in them? So deeds, not words. Make sure that you talk to your provider, not just about what they're saying they're going to do, but ask for proof, ask for action, ask that they can show you that they are adhering to these 7 really important areas and principles for a trusted cloud, because the cloud is incredibly important for all of us. Keeping it safe and having trust in it really, really matters. I am so grateful for your time. Thank you very much.